outcomes. Okay, a couple of the use cases, the scenarios in which we come in to save the day. For instance, if you want to grow your PM team, or if you have a temporary gap in your organization, for instance, you have an employee that is on leave for 3 to 12 months or 36 months, or someone left the company, one of your PMs, and until you hire a new PM, which usually takes months, we are here to take their place until the solution is there. And here we can see my beautiful colleagues, my beautiful team. We are working remote. We're working from all over the world. And here you can see our beautiful clients. We also have Zalando, who is the guest tonight. We also have Scout and Tier. And as you can see, our clients are very diverse, from corporations to startups in all domains and industries. We got them and we're happy to help. And before we reach the highlight, just a couple of words about hiring. We're growing our team. So if you as a PM would like to join and help us, help our clients, please don't hesitate to contact us. And also, if you're a talent acquisition manager, a recruiter, please join our team and help us grow and thrive. And now we've reached the highlight. We have our guest, Mariana from Zalando Lounge. Mariana is a senior product manager. Thank you so much for being with us here this evening, Mariana. We're very excited to hear about the presentation, and please, you have the stage.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, everyone. Okay, great. I'm going to start by first sharing my screen, so I know that I have the slides and you guys can follow along with me. So give me a second with the technology. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we do.
Brilliant. The right one or my Gmail?
Right.
Fantastic. Okay, so as Anna mentioned earlier, the topic today is going to be internal versus customer-facing product development. It's a topic that is very dear to my heart. That is because I spent most of my PM career doing internal product development. And I want to open up this topic to the PM community, to create some buzz around it, to see what other people believe, right? So far, I've been mainly speaking about this topic with my colleagues in the different companies, including Zalando Lounge, and a lot of them have a lot to say. Some are 100% kind of on my side. They believe exactly what I believe. They have the same concerns and the same motivation, and others are completely against, which is brilliant for conversation and discussing these kind of topics. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what the community here thinks. This presentation is going to be interactive. There's going to be a lot of polls where I'm going to ask you to help me along by answering. We're going to present the results of those polls, and we're going to discuss what they mean, and it's going to drive the presentation forward. What you're going to get from this presentation is kind of my thoughts about this difference between internal and customer facing, what I believe the challenges are, why I want to make this into a topic to be discussed in the product community. And finally, I would like to return here in the next couple of months, hopefully not too far from today, with more tangible, let's say, artifacts that will help internal product managers to navigate their day-to-day challenges that I think exist. So I will ask you at the end if you want to help me further this research, but until we get there, let me give you more insight. So a little bit about me. My name is Mariana Tibuh. I'm currently working at Zalando Lounge, as I mentioned previously, and I've been in the product development world for about 6 years or over 6 years, and mainly worked on internal facing products. I was lucky to work in quite big organizations in my career, like Airbnb and Wayfair, Omio. I previously worked with Mirella, and this is how we got to know each other. And now I work at Zalando. And as I said, most of my focus was on internal facing product, but I also had the opportunity to work on customer facing, and that has solidified even more my feeling that there are huge differences between these two types of product development, and these differences are very obvious when you work in both, and they're worth exploring. I think they can be quite challenging for a non-experienced product manager, and I want us to help them. That's pretty much the aim here. So I'm going to start the session with asking you a question. I want to know who our audience is. I want to understand if you are working on customer-facing or internal-facing product, or maybe you can't define it because you never thought about it really in that way, or maybe you're not a PM at all. So do let me know what this is, because I'd like to know who I'm talking to. So we'll take 2 minutes for you to answer, and then we'll look at the results.
Okay, I'm going to share the results now.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we have a very good split here. For those of you that cannot see the poll results, I'm going to go through them quickly now. So we have 46% that are of people watching today are working on customer-facing products. We have 31% that are working on internal-facing, which is fantastic. Hopefully they'll be on my side. Now there is no side, but you know what I mean. We have 15% of people that are not a PM. I hope they find this topic interesting. And 8% of the people said that they cannot define it. So there you have it. Maybe we can post these later in the chat somewhere if anyone wants to take note of this, just for their interest. I don't know. Can somebody keep this, or does this stay? I'm not sure.
I think I can share it later. I will check.
Cool. Thank you. Fantastic. Okay, so now I know my audience. This is following another with another poll. Quickly, just to understand, what do you think is the split in your organization between internal-facing and customer-facing product managers? So once you answer this, I'll tell you what my experience is and the companies I've worked for. Remember, I told you that I've had the opportunity to work for big global companies that have over 10,000 people employed. So maybe it is quite different from the experience you're having. Maybe you're working in a startup with 10, 20 people, and the split between internal and customer facing might be quite different. So I'll tell you what my experience is after you submit this.
I'm waiting for maybe a few another seconds, and I can tell you people on LinkedIn and YouTube say mostly B.
Mostly B, okay.
Okay, I'm going to end the poll now. Here are the results. Wait, sorry, this is something I need to stop sharing. Apparently, I need to stop previous poll to share the results. Or not. Yeah,
okay.
Now you should see it.
There you go. Okay, so the split is the majority of the people watching at the moment think that the split in their company is majority customer facing. So that's 46%. Then majority internal facing is 38%, and equally split is 15%. Fantastic. And you said on LinkedIn, people said that it's mainly internal facing. Is that correct?
Yes, but we have a bit less votes there, so not very statistically significant, I would say.
Understood. Okay. Well, from my experience, they were right. So based on the companies I work for, that is also true there. So 60 to 70% of the product managers work on an internal facing product. And now to the question, why does it matter, right? Why are we even talking about this? I think the reason we're talking about this is visibility. Visibility into the different challenges and needs of the two different types of product development, right? As I said in the beginning, I think there are certain challenges that one type of product manager does not face compared to the other. And the reason we're only going to look at the challenges faced by an internal product manager is simply because these are less discussed. There's not so much about this. And just for clarity, we're not going to disclose here how we can solve these challenges, but I think bringing visibility is a first way of dealing with exposing these challenges and then eventually solving for them. So now we kept talking about naming conventions and calling it internal product manager. And this is what I call it. This is what I call myself. And this is what a lot of my colleagues and peers call themselves, if you ask them what kind of product manager they are. But when I conducted some research within Zalando Lounge, a lot of my colleagues came up with a lot more names. So as you can see, another thing here is that there is no one way of defining this type of product development. Is it are you a technical product manager? Are you internal tools product manager? Are you a non-customer facing product manager, etc.? So I would love to know what you call yourself, what kind of product manager you would describe to your friends, or give us other ideas if you can, or if you've used other terminology, I'd be happy to learn about that.
The poll is running.
This one is the most fun one. When I did this in the company, we've had really interesting namings for the role. So I'm really curious to see what you guys come up with. Maybe you can tell me also what other people are saying outside of Zoom, if there are any
Sure.
answers.
All right, I'm ending the poll in Zoom, and we'll show the results right now. People watching us on streams on YouTube and LinkedIn have various answers, A or B.
A or B. Fantastic. So I'm going to share what the results of the poll is from the Zoom participants. So 25% selected A, technical product manager. 17% selected internal tools product manager, 8 non-customer facing, 42%, the most overwhelming answer is internal customer product manager, and 8% had others. I'm not sure for the others, were the participants able to actually type anything, or they could only choose other?
No, they can type right now in the chat in Zoom, and I can also read out that in LinkedIn, Sasha suggested customer enabling product manager. And Walid just shared that in his company, they're also figuring this out.
Ah, cool, interesting. A little birdie also told me that there is a major project going on at Spotify about the same topic, actually, defining the challenges for internal product managers compared to customer facing. So I guess more and more people in my position are challenging the status quo and wanting to have maybe more representation for their type of product development. Okay, so now that we talked about naming conventions and we realized that even that we don't have one way of calling ourselves, and there's still need for a lot of discussion and agreement between us as internal product manager, what we are and how we should define ourselves. I would like to move on to the impact on the PM community, right? So who do we think this impacts mainly? And I think from my experience, again, this would probably be very interesting for new PMs that happen to land a role as an internal facing product manager. So imagine yourself working in a totally different industry, and then you want to jump into the PM world, and you read all about frameworks and tooling, and you read all of the most important books about how to be the best product manager, and you went and watched conferences, and you watched YouTube videos, and you heard, I don't know, Steve Jobs talk about the latest thing on their products, right? And then you start your job, and your first project is some database migration that you have to do. That is not at all like what you read about, right? And you're trying to think, how are you going to apply all of these frameworks and methodologies you hear about to something that is so far away from the customer? How are you ever going to measure NPS? How are you going to be able to justify that this is worth doing? And how are you going to convince your stakeholders that need to build something alongside you that you're dependent on to help you? So new PMs, definitely, I think this topic would totally impact them if they've never worked in a product development environment before. Then we have our internal facing PMs that never find themselves represented in the PM community. Again, we're talking about all these conferences and books that you're reading, but you never hear about these projects that are like kind of dirty work, right? It's like the back end. That's a lot of the terminology that we hear about internal facing, right? Oh, back-end systems, right? As if they're hidden away. And we want to hear about examples of work that we do every day. For example, Zalando at the moment is very proud and working on an initiative that I think is fantastic, to have more models on the website that represents every size and shape, and everyone can find themselves when they look through the catalog, right? You want to feel represented. You don't want everyone to look in one particular way, because we're not like that. It's the same with PMing. If we always talk about the new, I don't know, Gmail feature and the new nice shiny product that everyone is using, but nobody's ever giving an example of something that you're working on, do you really have the confidence, and are you reassured that you're a good PM, that you're doing the good work, that you're working on the right thing? And will you always strive to be a customer-facing product manager? Because, you know, the fame goes along with it. So these are questions to be answered. I'm not saying it is this way or the other way. I'm just saying that I've I've experienced this. I've gone to conferences, I've spoken to people, and it's so hard to, even within the PM community there, to explain to other people what I do and why my work is important and how I feel rewarded by the work that I do, because it's quite technical, right? And it's so much harder to explain. So what are these challenges that I'm talking about? For example, identifying gaps or drawing parallels between you and your competitors, right? How do most e-commerce companies deal with data storage? This is not a question you're going to find by Googling. And you're not going to be able to answer this unless you previously worked in an e-commerce company and you have some sort of an experience. But if you are a customer-facing product manager and you're working on something that is visible, you can look at your competitor's product and draw these parallels and understand the gaps, right, between your product and their product. It is much more difficult to draw these parallels and identify these gaps when you work on something that is, again, backend. Identifying trends, what's in. Again, it's very similar to the previous challenge. It's very hard to know unless you have somebody that works in another company that is similar to yours, and you can, you know, get this feedback from the community that is working on similar types of platforms. It's so much more difficult to find these questions. Establishing standardization is another problem, right? For example, we're talking customer facing again. If you're going to create a new web browser, you know that you're going, when you want to open a new tab, you should add the plus sign because it's kind of standard. Everyone expects to click on the plus sign to move to open a new tab, and it's easy to follow that standard. But working on a backend product, again, this is much more difficult. And this is definitely has been my experience as well, working on a lot of, for example, integration platforms and different ways of integrating with APIs and other external parties. So another challenge. Then we're talking about identifying your customer. We're going back to our new PM that just landed a job, his first job, and he has to do a database migration, and he has no idea how to link this to the customer because he thinks this needs to be linked to the customer. That's what he read in the material. So who is his customer? Is it easy to identify? And then prioritizing your projects is kind of not the last, definitely not the last challenge, but definitely one of the top challenges. How do you convince your stakeholders that you need to prioritize a project that is very technical and very hard to explain and for them to relate to when it's not a tangible product, something they can see, like a new, I don't know, feature on a website? So these are the challenges that I'm exposing today. As I mentioned to you, we're not going to solve them here. What I'm hoping we're going to solve today is bring more visibility into these challenges and hopefully come together as a community to help each other and potentially create a framework for PMs like me to use in their day-to-day jobs and to answer these questions easily without a lot of effort and frustration. So I have here some things that some of my colleagues said. So this is one of my colleagues, he's in the billing department. What he says is, since billing is expected to just work, right? My products can either dissatisfy customer or not make a difference to their happiness, right? It is unlikely to delight the customer. And you hear this delight the customer all the time in product, right? Everyone wants to delight the customer. This makes it hard to deliver a product NPS from company NPS scores, right? We can all relate to this guy, right? It's like, it's just not the sexiest thing to work in billing. And then from my point of view, I work in logistics, right? Super backend, work with carrier integrations and data floating around. And so I work a lot also with operational teams, right? That deal with the shipping of the products and the tools that they need. And internal customers are always looking for solutions to problems they have today. But as a PM, we all know, we have to think about the future, where the industry is going, what the company is going, and so on and so forth. And balancing both gets very, very tricky because my customer is not the end customer of our product. They expect from me an immediate solution for a problem they have now. And this is definitely a lot trickier than dealing with gaps that we would have in a customer-facing platform. What have I been using lately? So, of course, there's a lot of nuances to what you use, the tools you use, the methodologies you use, and the artifacts. But one that I started using since I joined Zalando is the Amazon press release. I have linked it here, a template for a press release. And I'd like to understand if you're using this in your organization or if you know what it is. And I will go into a little bit more detail about this tool that I found useful.
Do you see the poll? Because I started it and I don't see any answers. Are people hesitant?
I already answered it.
Yes, we received a message polling not started or end or something like that.
Really? Let me start again.
Yeah.
Okay, there seem to be some issues. How about now?
Yep, I got it.
Yay. Yeah, I see also the answers.
Fantastic.
Some answers from YouTube and LinkedIn. A, D.
Nice. Well, I'm glad I can at least help the people that never heard of it. And
Another
I'm glad for the ones that did.
Okay, I think we're done in Zoom. Here are the results.
Fantastic. Okay, so the results on the Amazon press release, 40% of the people are already using it, 30% are not. Nobody answered to not yet. And 30% also said they've never heard of it. Okay, great. Then let me tell you about it. So for the ones that are already using it, you know the kind of how it works. So this is not going to be any news for you, but the press release is a document that should be kept quite short, 1 to 2 pages, and is mainly focused on new products, right? Not small iterations usually, because this is quite an extensive document that you have to write. You have to put a lot of thought into it. So it's not really worth doing this for something that is incremental, let's say. But if you're going to do a newer initiative, something that is, let's say, unique or has never been done for you before in the company or something like this, you would want to write a press release. And this has a couple of sections, and the importance of this is that it focuses pretty much in the future. So it's what it says it is. It's a press release, as if it's already the product was already launched. So you talk about your product as if it already happened. So you're talking about what problem it solved, who your customer was, and then you're making up some customer quotations of how satisfied they were with the product and why they think this product was a success. Of course, there's some sections in there about a little bit more specific about how you solve that problem, but in general is a very streamlined way of presenting your success story based in the future to your stakeholders so they can actually back you up. So this is what this tool does. And there's a couple of rules. I picked the top 3 that I think are important to follow when creating one of these press releases. So it must be stated in the future point, at a future point in time where success hasn't been achieved and realized. So you have to talk about it as if it happened already. You have to discuss why it's important and who that customer is that is using it or is benefiting from your release. Set an audience and a clear goal, and articulate clear measurable results, including financial, operational, or market share. These are the 3 most important things, I think, that need to go into the press release. But the template there can walk you through all of the different sections. There are not that many. It should be kept short. That's the whole point of it, that you can hand it to your higher management team and they can scan through it and you can grab their attention with this and get their support to launch your product. And all in all, I think we are through now with this presentation, and I'm through with everything I had to say. And I'm going to go back to one of the first points that I've made, helping the community, and especially the community of PMs that are working on internal-facing, technical, internal customer-facing products. I'm working on this topic myself at the moment. I want to potentially publish something on this. I think it's a topic that needs to be discussed. And as you can see from the polls, people have opinions. Many people feel like I do today. And I think it's important to talk about it. And other big companies, as I mentioned earlier, and we've heard before from LinkedIn, I think it was, are looking at this topic inside their own companies. So I think it's the right time to discuss this. If you want to help me conduct this research further and actually publish something around it, please contact me. I'd be happy to have your help and to go further with this. I think next time we meet, I would like to have some sort of a framework or something more tangible that we can help the community overcome the challenges I presented, or even talk about new challenges we discovered. So yeah, it was lovely to talk to you today. Thank you very much for listening. And this is it. That's me.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Mariana, so much, and for shedding light on a rather under-discussed topic, right? And yes, everyone, now we start the Q&A session. You're welcome to ask questions, either verbally or in writing in the chat in Zoom. Or if you join us from YouTube or Facebook or the other platforms, please ask your questions there and we will gladly transfer them here and ask them to Mariana. Okay, I could start with the first questions, and from all the challenges you told us about, what would you say was your biggest challenge that is not a challenge for the other PMs that are customer facing?
I think the biggest challenge is being able to present the topics, the more technical topics, to my stakeholders or to even the customers, right? My customer in this context being the operational teams I work with, presenting the initiatives in a digestible way, right? So when you're talking to the business, it's very hard to talk about topics like I mentioned before, database migration and API, Nakadi stream or something like that, and make it digestible. And it happens with experience. you have to employ a lot more skill in making sure that you can make things visible, right? Somehow draw it out if you can. But I think this has been the biggest challenge. People not really understanding why this is important and what, why I want to work on this, because they don't understand the problem. It's sometimes a little bit more more technical than the norm.
True. Yeah.
A very good question. I see here. I'm going to go ahead. This is something actually that I just recently brought up with our PM community, that we do not have educational sessions like this, and that we should. So the answer is no, unfortunately. But I'm hoping to drive this forward with the PM community within Zalando. Yes.
Great. Thank you for the question. Thank you for the answer. We have a question from LinkedIn, from Walid Khan. Do you think it makes sense that product managers rotate between customer-facing and non-customer-facing roles, so that the entire community has a better appreciation for internal PMs?
This is such a great idea. Yes, I do. I think it would be fantastic for everyone to experience both worlds. Why not? I mean, I would have never been sure of the feeling I had that we have challenges that customer-facing product managers have, until I landed a role as a customer-facing, and then I realized that some of the challenges I was dealing with before just never came up in that role. There were different challenges, and I don't want to say that customer-facing product managers don't have challenges. That's by far not true. I just think that they're more discussed and more visible, and they have more solutions. That's why I'm not discussing it today. But yes, I think rotation is a fantastic idea, and if we can achieve that, that would be so cool.
Great. Further questions? Anyone wanna ask verbally a question?
Are there any resources, blogs, communities, etc., you can recommend for internal PMs? That's so funny. I'm looking for them myself. I don't have that many. I have a couple of resources. Honestly, I should have prepared for this, because I should have thought that you will ask. But I don't have it here in front of me. I have a couple of links. I'm not sure exactly how to give these further to you after the session. Anna, maybe maybe posting it in the Telegram channel or something like that.
If you send them to us, we will find a way to distribute.
Fantastic. I have a couple of links to some resources. There's not much out there.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, please do send them to us, and we will gladly distribute them to everyone. I would also take a question from YouTube, from you, Yang. Based on your previous experience, how do you feel the balance between internal and customer facing?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Balance in what sense? I'm not sure in terms of, I'm not sure, maybe if you can elaborate a little bit more on that question, that would be fantastic, so I can answer. In terms of,
yeah, provide more details on YouTube, and I will read it to Mariana.
Fantastic.
We could go to a next question, and if we get details, I'll get back to you on this one. So from Sasha on LinkedIn, what is the one key difference between building a roadmap for IPS and user-facing products? Anything to keep in mind?
I think once you get to the point of building the roadmap, I think differences are maybe not as obvious between customer facing and internal facing, because at that point you already have gone through all of the challenges of discovering these, talking to your stakeholders, understanding if there is a need for developing this particular initiative, getting their buy-in, because obviously you would not add something to your roadmap that you don't have buy-in for. So you would have maybe you understood who your customer is, how to measure this and the success of it. So you have overcome a lot of the challenges that are, let's say, potentially before the point of adding something to your roadmap. Nevertheless, of course, if your roadmap is not a quarterly roadmap and it's a roadmap that is much longer, you probably would add topics on there that have not been yet defined to this extent, and you would then come across these challenges that I discussed, which is defining your customer, getting buy-in, being able to quantify the success of your projects when, like I said, it's a you cannot say customer NPS because it's a billing platform, right? So I guess, yeah, this is kind of how I see it so far. But I would love to hear what you think. If you think there are challenges further than what I see.
Anyone? Any ideas in this regard? Okay, maybe we can also keep this discussion for later. Keep it in mind. You're always welcome, everyone, to intervene and ask questions. And thank you, Mariana, for answering them. We have another question in our Zoom chat from Anton. What's the internal Zalando distribution between internal versus customer-facing PMs?
Yes, so at Zalando, in general, I think it matches what the overall the other companies that I work for, where it's about 60 to 70% of product managers work on internal facing product compared to customer facing, which would be 30 to 40%.
Appreciate your response. I still have one more question, Mariana.
Sure,
thank you so much. Yeah, so when you describing the challenges, you also mentioned that one of the things is when you work for the internal facing software or the module or the components, then sometimes it's very difficult to justify the value.
Yeah.
Do you believe that there is internal competition between PMs at Zalando?
Internal competition, in which sense?
I mean, for resource.
There is always internal competition for resources. And I guess this is where you need these tools, actually, because at the end of the day, this is just a challenge for you as a PM, right? It's a challenge to prove to your stakeholders that you have a roadmap so big with such important initiatives that you need more engineers, you need more PMs, and they believe you and they agree with you and they understand it, and they give you the resources, right? So that's why we want to overcome these challenges of being able to express the importance of internal facing products in a way that is digestible and understandable to not technical people, so they can give you the support and the resources that you need. So yeah, this is what I think. There's always competition, but I think the whole point of doing if I to say a good job, right, and being thorough, is not just you knowing that this is important, but everyone around you, your stakeholders understanding the importance of what you want to build, and then just justification of why, and then obviously you should have not many barriers in getting the resources you need. I hope this answered your question.
Makes sense. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. Thank you for the question and thank you for the answers.
And thank you for the camera. It's nice to see you.
Any other question now that we opened the verbal communication channels?
I have a question about prioritization. First of all, thank you. Yeah. Like you mentioned, prioritization is one of the biggest challenges that we face as internal facing PMs. So what have you found to be like the easiest workaround or framework you'd recommend, especially when the team you're serving is not just dedicated to, let's say, operations, and you're like, your squad serves operations, finance, marketing. How in the past, if you've done so, what would you recommend as a way of prioritizing when you have requests from these various departments?
Thanks for the question. Really, really hard. So I unfortunately don't have a framework that I can just give you for you to apply. I guess to go back a little bit on my message is that I want us to work on that together as a community, but I'll tell you how I deal with it. And usually I try to, if whatever I want to deliver, it doesn't just depend on my team, right? Because then it's easy. If it's just my team, it's okay. But very rarely when you're want to deliver something that is back end, it's just dependent on your team. So you probably need 3 other platforms to also do work and prioritize the work alongside you. And then trying to find the value that it will bring to them to do this alongside you and help you prioritize. And if you have 3 other teams that are ready to build this, it's much easier to get something on the roadmap and to prioritize it with the stakeholders against other projects. So yeah, expressing the value for more than just your team, finding people that you can work alongside with that you can bring value to as well, and them to support you to deliver this, I think helps. Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Thank you for the answer. Any other questions? Okay, until people gather their thoughts or their courage, I'll ask you another more subjective question. Like we talked about challenges, right? And some disadvantages, but how about the advantages or one of the biggest satisfaction that you have as an internal PM?
I'm almost worried to say this one, but I'll say it anyway. This is something I always joke with my friends about, right? So the advantage of working on something that is hard to understand is that not many people have an opinion. So you're kind of left to your own devices, and you're seen as the expert, because everyone has this, right? I'm not saying people are fantastic at always wanting to participate, right? And I love that, and I'm that person myself. But when you see something like, let's go back to the web browser, right? Somebody wants to add something, some feature, I don't know, a plugin. You're a user yourself, so you will have an opinion. Even if you're not an expert, you still have an opinion, and everyone has an opinion. And sometimes, you don't want so many opinions. So working on something that is quite technical actually somehow has this advantage. It's not really an advantage from the point of view that, of course, more brains are always better than just one, but it's kind of, you know what I'm trying to say. It's a little bit like you're left alone to do your job. So yeah, this is the fun part of it.
And it's also a very respected position. Like when I hear technical PM, it's also yeah, it goes from also from the premise that you are an expert and you're also a tech expert. So also from that point of view, there's
Yeah, and then your parents ask you to fix their laptop. I'm sure you guys got that already, like getting a call from your mom with a screen, like a photo of the computer, is like, what do I do now? And I was like, I don't know, I'm not IT.
yeah, you're forever the IT guy or the
Yes,
IT girl. So, yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, once you have the word technical, then you must know technical things.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly it.
that's true. Aha, a new question. How do you develop your competence as a PM? Good one.
I think experience is one, right? Of course, the more you work in this field, the more you learn. But I think having a mentor, that's helped me a lot, that you can go to, and that unfortunately cannot always be your manager. Now, my current manager is awesome, actually. But that's not always the case, right? Not that your manager is bad, but maybe you don't have the confidence to go to them, right? So I think the key is having a mentor that you trust and that is not going to judge you, because sometimes you're afraid to go to your manager because he might put that in your performance review. I don't know. Having somebody that you can go to and ask basic questions that you think you should already know. I think these are like the catch things where you feel like everyone else knows something and you don't. Let's say, for example, the Amazon press release is such a hype thing at the moment, right? And you might feel embarrassed to say you don't even know what that is. I mean, it's okay in a poll, nobody can see who you are, but you might not go to your manager and say you don't know because you haven't read the latest article on the Amazon press release, right? And having somebody of confidence that you can go to and discuss the latest topics, your problems, the things the challenges you're facing, and how to solve them, and talking to other people that for sure are experiencing the same thing as you. I think that's one of the best ways. Of course, reading a lot of the material, going to conferences and networking. The topics usually at conferences are quite repetitive. I'm sure you all experience that. It's all, they kind of repeat. But networking with other people and really getting their true opinion about their challenges and how they're dealing with them in a one-to-one conversation is, for me, the most important. And that's why I'm so keen in being part of a PM community, because I think we can definitely help each other and learn from each other. And it's much faster than trying to do it alone. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. I see you see the question from Juan.
Yes, I'm looking at the question from Juan. I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly. Please correct me if I'm not. What would the press release of internal facing framework would you want to develop look like? Or is it too early to say something about it? Definitely, I think, yeah, I don't think I'm there yet. I think I would even be embarrassed to talk about, going back to the embarrassment, I'd be embarrassed to even present some of the ideas that I have. I think I have some ideas about a framework that I think would suit and help internal facing product developers. But yeah, definitely too soon to talk about it. But if you're interested in more details and you want to reach out to me after this, I can show you what I'm working on.
Great. We're looking forward to see where this initiative goes. Anyone has other questions? We're slowly approaching the end.
Thank you too.
Maybe you want to tell us more about this initiative of yours, like general guidelines. How can we contribute?
So ideally, what I'm trying to do, my sample at the moment. So I told you I started the research about how internal product managers feel about the challenges that I presented today and what other challenges they're facing in Zalando Lounge. And I think the next step for my research and expanding on this is to have a bigger sample size. The next step for me is to go to Zalando as a whole group. I don't know if everyone knows, but they're one company, but there's Zalando, the main shop, and then there's Zalando Lounge. So that's why I talk about them differently, because we're a little bit separate, because they're two different platforms, two different websites. Mm-hmm. So my next step is to approach Zalando, the PM community as well, with this topic. And then obviously reaching out to the community through this platform and other platforms to get more input, because I don't want to my research to be based on my biases, right, and my experiences, and I don't think it's going to be useful to anyone to come up with something that is based on 20 people's experience, especially 20 people that work on the similar platform. So first of all, getting the right sample size to have the right kind of input, and then together we can work towards framing something that will be helpful for any industry and any PM in facing internal product challenges. So that's kind of the steps that I'm taking towards this developing something for the community.
Well, we wish you a lot of good luck, and also please contact us if we can help you in any way. Also with the product people team, because it's a great initiative. And you know, before you actually talked about this topic, I never really thought about it this way, right? So it's actually one of those topics that's obvious, but you don't think about it very often. So yeah.
Thank you. I think Anton has a question. Mm-hmm. What was your biggest challenge as a PM, just looking back? I think the biggest challenge was switching industries.
Sorry, say again.
Switching industries.
Got it. Yeah.
So I started my career as a PM at Wayfair in logistics and transportation, and all of the systems that come along with that. And I worked there for 4 years. And then I went to Airbnb, and that was travel, right? And being experienced as a PM, but having no knowledge about the travel industry and no expertise was so tough. I felt like I was a complete noob again. It felt like I'm completely in the dark. So I spent a lot of time actually reading about this industry. I knew nothing of how it works or anything. I like to travel. That's as much as I could add to it. But knowing trends and how the industry is moving, and the technology that the industry is using, and everything about how the back-end stuff works, it was completely new to me, and it was very, very challenging. Swapping industries is really, really hard. And then after that, I moved to another traveling company, which was Omio, and that was easy. I liked that. It was like, oh, that's good. And then I went back to e-commerce at Zalando in logistics again. So I kind of did a full circle around, and it felt good going back into logistics because I had 4 years of experience and I knew what I was doing, and it did not feel like I was new. So that was good. So I think that was the biggest challenge with it. Yeah.
Thank you so much. You know, I love these retrospection questions, but sometimes it's so complex and difficult to remember, to recall.
Yeah. All right. Is that the end? I don't know. I see that Victoria posted something. A goodbye.
We're slowly approaching the end of today's session. And Victoria has kindly posted where you can find more information about our events and our community. So everyone, please click on them, join us. And yes, first of all, thank you so much, Mariana. It has been very exciting and very useful information, and also great initiatives, which we hope we may contribute. And yeah, thank you everyone so much for your questions and your attention. And we're looking forward to seeing at our next event.
Thank you everyone for listening to me and for being so cooperative and asking questions and being interested. And like I said, I'm looking forward to hearing from you personally if you're having interest in helping the community in general with these challenges.
Maybe just a quick question. We are not able to click on Zoom, so can you share the contacts and how to get in touch with Mariana, please?
I can add them here, or can you add them here?
I don't know, maybe
in the chat.
Whatever works for you, just.
Okay. I will let Anna and Victoria decide what is best.
Sure.
I don't want to break anything. So yeah.
Victoria is sharing them in the Zoom chat. We also have also received thank you messages. One on LinkedIn. Thank you for your interesting presentation. I feel the topic you addressed today. Having worked on a customer-facing product for 5 years, I'm now working on an API, a shipping provider service. I believe in a similar area like you. I'd be glad to exchange thoughts on the topic you raised today.
Cool.
This is from Ali Reza on LinkedIn. So yes, we'll just add Mariana, contact her, or contact us if you can't get a hold of her, and we'll facilitate. Great, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mariana. It was a pleasure. Have a great day, evening.